I know you've addressed this on Locked On Browns podcast. Why do you think Kevin Stefanski deserves at least some credit for the development and growth in Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, listen, I understand this is like kind of a hot button issue, right? Because I sort of clarified this on the show, just in general, like from the beginning of the conversation. I don't think Kevin Stefanski handled the four-way quarterback competition correctly. And what I mean by that is he started this whole thing off by saying all these guys are going to have a chance. It's a four-way competition. They're all going to have a chance to maybe win the job. And that wasn't true. When push came to shove, from spring through training camp up to the regular season starting, it was pretty obvious that they had already sort of predetermined. We think Dylan Gabriel's the more developed of the two, the more ready of the two. He's going to be sort of first in line on the depth chart, and it was more so a competition between the two veteran guys for the starting job and the two rookies for the backup job. That's essentially what it became, and it didn't really change other than due to injuries. That was sort of the way they went about that thing. So I think he mishandled that. I think there's an argument to be made that maybe they should have had Shedeur Sanders starting sooner, and that maybe they misevaluated the two rookies that they ended up drafting. But at the same time, I still think like it's fair to say that Shedeur needed some time to learn at this level. Whether you think he should have been doing that out in the field or not, I think that it's fair to say like there's clearly some things that he needed to work on and improve on and get better at, and we're seeing that sort of in real time on the field now. But I think whether or not people want to give Kevin Stefanski credit or not, I do think like their process of kind of being patient with him and kind of letting him work behind the scenes and then being able like clearly him playing well is a byproduct of everybody that kind of had a hand in this thing. Like Shedeur deserves the most credit. I think that has to be stated as well because he's been the one putting in the effort and the time, and he's clearly been dedicated to trying to be great in this league. But I think in general, like everybody sort of involved in that process of getting him out on the football field has had a small role, or at least a percentage of deserves a percentage of credit for helping him become the player that we're seeing him sort of become and setting him up for success. I don't subscribe at all to the notion that they were trying to sabotage him and all these different things. I think they wanted him to succeed. Maybe they should have put him out there earlier, but I think that everything that they did was in the vein of let's get this guy ready. And I think you've seen some of those successes because, yes, he's put in the hard work, but also because behind the scenes, his coaches, from Kevin Stefanski on down to Tommy Rees and Bill Musgrave, also wanted to set him up for success. And I think they've tried to do that to the best of their ability.
Here's where I'm at with him, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks. He makes enough throws at a high level, and there's still a lot that he needs to clean up. There's even in the Bears game, there's 3 or 4 throws where like, all right, this guy can play. The things that he needs to speed up and not hold the ball, not take long. Those are all things you can learn and coach out of him. It isn't gonna be overnight though. There's going to be growing pains with what he needs to improve on. But I go back to if you don't absolutely love there's no way in the world at this point that I'm trading a first round pick at the bottom of the first round and the Browns pick wherever it is 4, 5, 3 to get a quarterback. If there's a quarterback when I'm sitting there at 4 that I really, really like, I'll take him. But at 25, you can still get a tackle, a guard, or a wide receiver who's going to significantly impact the offense. And you need as many of those guys on the line and outside as you can get.
Yeah, and listen, as we talk about like credit and all that too, like it's been noticeable that Shedeur Sanders, one thing that's gotten immensely better is his pocket presence, right? Like we all saw the tape. We saw him drift in the pocket and struggle in that regard. They've already coached a lot of that out of him. They clearly gave him something to work on, and he's improved more and more as he's been out there on the field. Like sometimes he holds the ball a little too long, and I think that's the next thing he kind of has to work on. But I think you do see those strides being made, and that's why I say like everybody sort of deserves credit for helping him focus on one thing in particular in his game that they thought was going to be a problem at the NFL level, and he's already started. You've already seen tangible evidence that he's improved there. So like that's huge. I think there's been enough growth that the Browns could certainly talk themselves into, trying to parlay this into him being the starter next year. I don't know. It's going to all depend on where they fall in the draft, right? I think that is the thing that everyone's missing in the conversation about do they take a quarterback in the draft or not, right? Is where do they end up? Right now they're 4, as you alluded to. The 3 teams ahead of them all have 2 wins. The nice thing is if the Titans win at least 1 more, and you only finish with 3 wins, you'll at least jump the Titans because they have a head-to-head win against you. So that's one team that's kind of out of your way. The toughest one that's going to be to jump is the Raiders because you beat the Raiders. So, and that's a team that needs a quarterback. Like it's kind of you kind of want either the Titans or the Giants to end up with that first pick if you're somebody who wants them to trade up, because then it's going to be for sale. But I'm curious to see what they do because here's the other thing too. I will say this, and maybe this sort of contradicts my earlier point about a new regime might not be invested in Shedeur Sanders, but I do think a new regime too could look and say, well, hey, we have 2 first-round picks. Let's just stink next year because we have time. We actually have time, right? Like this regime doesn't have time to sort of wait around and find that quarterback. But a new regime that comes in, they might say, hey, we got some time here. We're going to kind of accept that our quarterback situation might be a little shaky next year. We're going to use these 2 picks, like you said, Dave, to bolster the roster elsewhere, and we'll figure out the quarterback situation in another way, whether it's a veteran that they sign to sort of bridge the gap or whatever, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, I'm curious to see where they end up in the draft, because if they're 4 and they got to try to trade up with the Giants or something like that, it is going to take multiple picks to do so. And do you want to? They're kind of stuck in a tight spot right now if they don't end up precisely with the number 1 overall pick, because they're going to have to decide, is it worth trading up to get a quarterback and maybe finally figure that out, or using those picks and all the draft capital we have to bolster the roster other places, because this team has a ton of needs, specifically on the offensive side of the football.